Greetings, it is April 30th, 2016. As a major artwork I did in 1991, it was the first major artwork I did after I moved into a non-live-in art studio I had in Seattle's Pioneer Square District in 1988 or 89. It's going to be exhibited in May. The exhibit reception is this Monday, May 2nd. 5 to 7 p.m. for those in Seattle and Puget Sound who are interested to attend. And as the work has never been exhibited before, it potentially faces being cut apart into pieces after this show. I am going to take the opportunity to read the article that was printed accompanying its publication in the late Jewish Transcript newspaper of Seattle, published September 18th, 1998, as a reproduction of the cover. That was given to me. The transcript later became the JT News, and then it became the JT News Voice of Jewish Washington, and in the last several issues it was called the Jewish Sound, but the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle folded the newspaper in end of March 2015. And here's a copy of as it looked on the newsprint there. And I'm going to read the article, which was doesn't have a byline to it, but it was probably authored by the then editor of the paper, Donna Blankenship, and includes a number of quotes from me. So I'm hoping that folks in the area will get over to see this work. Great and rare opportunity to see it. It's the largest work I've ever made in my entire art career. Student years and post-student years is 8 feet high by 5 feet wide. The largest work in the Under the Wing series is 4 feet by 8 feet. So this one's bigger. So without further ado, about the cover art by Akiva. The art on the cover of this section reproduces a 7-foot-high pencil drawing and gouache painting by Seattle artist Akiva Kenny Segan. The artist calls this work, which he began in 1990 and finished in 1991, the largest and possibly most challenging he had ever attempted. Quote, I had allowed my long-forgotten ability to read Hebrew in synagogue to lapse entirely, and it presented daunting compositional and execution work, end of quote. He wrote in an explanation of the work. I'm going to pull a stool up here to sit. Thank you. Quote, Hebrew letters are beautiful and were the inspiration for the painting. I looked at different Judaica books for source materials to both inspire me and for material to draw my own interpretations from, end of quote, he explained. The focal point of the whole work is the 10 Commandments in the center. What we see here, excuse the reflection on the glass from the overhead lights here. Around the 10 Commandments are many different images, letters, words, some sentences. It includes manuscript reproductions from library books, Jewish American newspapers long out of print, a Rosh Hashanah greeting card, and contemporary Israeli papers. Quote, as the drawing of the letters progressed from penciled-in outlines to color, some made me think of bones, the desert, and timelessness, Segan said. In the lower left quadrant, I'm going to pull a photograph out. Hopefully we'll get some less reflection on there. And I didn't pull out the flyers. I have to find them, that were used as source materials for one quadrant as well as another, where I had printed out the lyrics of what the article talks about here. So here's the 10 Commandments in the center. We have a upper quadrant in the upper left, quadrant I call it on the upper right, one in the lower right, and one in the lower left. So in the lower left quadrant, he sought a way to remember the Holocaust, which he did by reproducing words from a Yiddish song, the Partisanenlied, partisan song in English, which was sung by Jewish men and women fighters in the forests of Eastern Europe as they shed their blood and gave their lives in the struggle to sabotage the Nazis. In the lower right, Segan sought to depict something from Seattle's Jewish history. To do that, he went to the Jewish archives of the University of Washington Library. He randomly chose the papers of several early 20th century Jewish Seattleites and was handed boxes of paper to examine. Quote, I found just what I wanted in the papers of Jacob Kaplan. May his memory be blessed, the artist recalled. Reproduced in the artwork from Kaplan's paper is an undated promotional flyer for the Seattle appearance of world-famous cantor Pinchuk. And I'm going to mention something about this after I finish reading the article. Quote, my great-uncle on my father's side emigrated to Mexico at the same time as my paternal granddad arrived in New York, and these Mexican cousins are Pinchuks. Pinchuk. For me, finding this flyer was like reading an Isaac Bashevis Singer children's story about Minsk and Pinsk! Exclamation, Segan wrote. After all the letters were drawn, Segan colored in the background with gouache, which is a thick form of watercolor. Quote, much of the background color was chosen to reflect the antique look of parchment with the timeless feeling that comes in looking at and contemplating the desert and dreaming about the exodus from Mitzrayim, Egypt. The years in the desert, the promised land, the Sinai, the Negev, Segan wrote. Segan designed the painting with the dream and hope of seeing it permanently installed in the Jewish Federation building stairwell. Federation staff has expressed interest in the work, providing a benefactor can be found to underwrite the purchase, framing, and installation of it. Unfortunately, that now postscript, that's about the end. Relevant sections of the article, that never happened. And now that it's going to be up, I'm going to be contacting Synagogues Federation Jewish Community Center in Mercer Island, one in the north end of the city here. Seattle University School of Religion and Theology, which has a art collection, and they have had a lot of interfaith dialogue over the years, particularly with their late Associate Dean Jack Olive, who I knew for many years. And see if a venue can be found for it first, and then someone to fund the framing of it. I'll practically sell it for a song in the interest of preserving it, both for Seattle Jewish history, interfaith dialogue, and so on. My own art history is a presence in Seattle since 1980, particularly in the Jewish community, and having done just gobs of Judaic artwork over the years and Holocaust artworks over many years, and with having had a number of articles about my work in the not only in the Jewish Transcript and the JT News over the years, but in the Seattle Times and Seattle PI, local community papers, and so on. So there you have it. If it comes down to my having to dismantle the work, I've decided, I'd initially been thinking I would just destroy it outright, but what I think what I'll do is I'll save the Ten Commandments as one section and kind of cut it, so I'll have like five pieces. But hopefully it won't come to that, and a venue will be found which has a wall large enough to install the work, and a donor, benefactor, or donors, benefactors, plural, can be found to underwrite the cost of framing it, and or having a plexiglass box container that it would sit in. It's on very heavy paper for installation in whatever venue is found for it. I do recall going to exhibits in the 1980s at the Foster White Gallery of another artist who worked in very large works on paper. And at Foster White, at least back then, they were in these kind of narrow plexiglass container boxes, which was a nice, very nice way to present the art. So there you have it. I'm just going to also mention as a postscript the writing in here is a mix of Hebrew, Yiddish, which is written in with Hebrew letters, and Judeo-Arabic. What I haven't found out yet, I did a posting on YouTube today. Actually, we have English letters, or Latin letters, not Latin language, but Latin letters, I guess is used the term, for English language letters, we have Partisan and Liad written down here, which is where the lyrics of the song I interpretively depicted here. We also have Latin or English letters up here. It looks like it says in English letters HATS, HATS, OFEHB apostrophe ER, and I'm hoping some Hebrew-speaking colleague or friend can come up with an actual translation, unless I had actually used. It's possible I used just a smattering of like alphabet soup of letters, which I know I did elsewhere. Although there are, as we know, at least in the lyrics of the Partisan and Liad, and in the part from the Seattle Jewish History. So the Seattle Jewish History was a flyer, which I'm going to video separately after I find it, in English and in Hebrew. I'm sorry, it was in English and in Yiddish, announcing a mammoth mass meeting at Washington Hall on 14th and East 1st Street in Seattle. And it's kind of near, south of Capitol Hill, near the Central District, close also to the International District. And it said something like the kosher meat question having been resolved, we now move on to Torah Talmud, or Talmud Torah, one or the other. Torah is the Jewish scriptures, the Hebrew Bible, Jewish Bible. Talmud is the commentary, written commentary, interpreting the Jewish Bible. And it said in the bottom paragraph in the flyer, in English on one side, Yiddish on the other, state something like this: this mammoth mass meeting will be of greatest, sort of like the greatest importance in Seattle Jewish history, and will be recorded in the Golden Book of Seattle Jewish history as this great event, which I chuckled about on reading, because I think hadn't I come across the flyer about it in Jacob Kaplan's papers, no one living in 1990 would have known about it, certainly not in 2016. So another reason why I'm hoping that the artwork can be saved intact and I don't end up having to cut it apart, mainly because I don't have a storage space for myself. Parts of it had torn on top in the aftermath of the February 28, 2001 quake. And when I found out it was going in the exhibit at Seattle Central College about a week and a half ago, I mended portions of it, and it's going to be very hard for me. Actually, I think it'll be impossible to roll it up as I had it stored before, and I simply don't have a storage room for it. There's a carton after carton of works from the Under the Wings and the Sightseeing with Dignity art series here in my storage studio area. So there you have it.